President of Scentroid, and today we have a webinar for you regarding how to start an odour lab. We're going to talk about some of the commercializations of an odour lab and how to make your odour lab profitable. So let's get started. This webinar is part of our Odour Academy. As many of you may know, we have an online academy which you can take self-learning tools as well as teacher-taught tools on how to do field odor inspection, odor consulting, environmental supervisor, and other activities which are related to the field of odor assessment, mitigation, and regulation. We have a number of courses, as you can see on this slide, and these courses are designed to really help you from becoming an environmental technician to one with a specialization on odor. So based on today's webinar, let's start out with what is an odor laboratory. Now, an odor laboratory is a service which is an environmental laboratory service, but specializing on determining odor strength, doing site assessment, doing odor management plans, dispersion modeling, and other activities. Some odor laboratories will focus purely on the odor threshold testing, on hedonic tone, on offensive rating, and a lot of them on abatement technology. Another activity that might generate very good revenue is doing material testing, where you do for consumer materials, automobiles, other things to determine which materials present a better odor, what are the odor strengths, how long they keep their odors, and things like that. So at the moment, a big trend is to go towards material testing for many labs to fill in their daily sample capacity. So let's look at the environmental market first. So the environmental market in 2019, and that's just the laboratory market, and the testing market is supposed to reach $9.5 billion in the United States, I believe. That is a fairly good market. And one thing that we want to look at is how much of that is related to odors. Now, there has been a lot of new activities related to odor regulation. So if you see the map on the right-hand side, you see that there are maybe a few stars around the world. For example, in Western Canada, in Alberta, in BC, in the United States, in a few of the states as well, Colombia, Brazil, Chile, as well as Turkey, China, Malaysia. They have implemented odor regulation within the last 3 years, let's say. There is a lot of already established markets, like most of Europe, Eastern Canada and Central Canada, or mostly Eastern Canada, some parts of the US, like, for example, California, that have already been doing odor testing and they have odor regulations. Australia is also another one like that. Now, let's look at one sector, for example, North America. Now, North America is a surprisingly untapped market. And with the growth of the American economy, it is a market that should be definitely looked at by people who are trying to get into the odor testing market. Currently, in Canada, we have only one odor testing site, and that is Toronto, and Montreal. In Toronto, we have 3 laboratories, and there are, I think, 3 in Montreal as well. There are no other laboratories really in the western parts of Canada, like BC, like Alberta. There is nothing on the East Coast as well. In the United States, which is even more surprising, there's only 3 laboratories that at least I know of that are taking commercial samples, basically from outside. One is in Connecticut, one is in the center of the Minnesota, I think, and one is in California. And that's it. For such an industrial country with so much activities going on, that is not a lot. And I know that there are a lot of people looking at odors in Florida and Texas, and there may not be odor regulation, but there definitely is complaints, and odor laboratories would be very useful in this country as well. So for this webinar, we're going to look not as a technical way of how to start an odor laboratory, but look from a business perspective, what you need to prepare before you can start the laboratory and what you need to do to make sure your lab is profitable. So the first thing we're going to look at is the initial capital requirements. Then we're going to look at finding and training panelists. We'll look at the laboratory information management system, how to get your accreditation, and then how to market and advertise your new lab. So the initial capital requirements are to cover the laboratory effectometer, the sampling equipment, as well as to set up the laboratory space. Of course, there should be some for wages of panelists and things like that, but the majority, really the barrier to entry mostly is in the laboratory effectometer. That has been traditionally the most expensive part of starting a lab. Now, I'm going to cover the range of effectometers that we provide and talk about where you would use each one. So you have, the first one is the Effectometer SS600. Now, this is our, let's say, flagship product. It is the largest of the 3 effectometers. It's designed for high sample rate. It can accomplish 20 samples per hour, and it does in Italy, in the UK. There are labs that are getting this kind of sample rate. It has a very sophisticated purging and decontamination algorithm, all designed to keep this very high sample rate. It's extremely reliable based on all industrial components, and it can do a European and Japanese test modes. So it is the one used by the Chinese EPA as well. Now, who is ideal client for this is a laboratory who can provide the sample rate. So they have, let's say, 80 at least samples a week. So when you have that kind of capacity, you can feed this machine, and its production rate is high enough that it will make it very profitable. The other option is to have the SC300. Now, this one is a portable effectometer, and it won't take as much laboratory equipment space. So your capital cost for the effectometer itself costs less than the 600. And instead of 6 people simultaneously going through the test, 1 at a time, up to 8 people can come and do the test. So your sample rate is lower. It's like 4 to 5 samples per hour if you're doing about 4 panelists and 2 rounds. But you can do all the same test modes, the Japanese test mode, the European test mode, and you can take this to site. So if your geographic location is big, let's say you are in the US and not necessarily all your clients are in the same state, so you want to go to the client site and you want to implement the effectometer, then this would be a good option. Also, there is a push for the next European standard to limit the number of hours between sampling and analysis to 6. Now, if that goes ahead or not, it's still true that sample degradation is very large. So having an effectometer on site is really a good idea, and it can give you much better results than if you have to air freight something across the country. The next one that we have, and this is a new one, is the SS400. Now, this one is a portable design, but you still have all the 6 panelists using it at the same time. So there is a pyramid in the middle, or what looks like a pyramid. So this is the heart of the instrument. It is the control module, the dilution, everything is happening inside this pyramid. And each panelist has 2 funnels in front of them, sniffing ports. And you can set it up to have 1, 2, 4, 6, whatever you want, number of panelists. They give their answers on a tablet, which is remotely connected through Bluetooth to the central station. So what gives this one some advantage is that it's also very portable. It can do 12 samples per hour, so it has a high production rate, and it can do the European model. So following binary and yes-no method plus hedonic tone. Another thing that we are promoting through this instrument is the lease option. And this is to reduce the capital cost required for you to start the lab. So instead of having to buy the whole instrument at the beginning, where you don't know if the market is ready, and it takes you some time to start up your client base, you can lease the equipment. And in this 1 year, you can see if the business picks up. You don't have to borrow a lot of money. And then the second year, you can continue the lease. And after the third year, you own the piece of equipment, this SS400. There is a unique annual calibration and maintenance option, which is covered by the lease. And if you're buying it, it's covered for a year, I believe. And then after that, you have to pay for the annual calibration. So what happens is that we will send you every year another SS400, just the heart of it, the pyramid. And you ship us back this one that you have. The one that we send you is pre-calibrated. It has all new tubing and fitting, and every piece has been taken apart, inspected, and cleaned. So it's really like having a new one from the factory, certified. And this will make sure that you don't really have any problems, and all the firmware are upgraded and everything is up to date. After the olfactometric equipment, the next piece you need are the sampling equipment. Here you will have sampling equipment which will be for taking from a stack, taking from a lagoon. You might have something more complicated like the drone. And all of it is to provide you with the option of giving the service of taking the sample yourself. There are a lot of labs that don't do this and just accept samples. But there is good profit to be made in the sampling. For the lab per bag analysis, you're fairly restricted with the rest of the competition. If you are in Chile, for example, you may be able to charge $500 or $600. If you are in Canada, you may charge $200 or $300. But the sampling, it's really up to you. It just depends on where you're going, what the terrain is like, how much equipment you need to take. So there may be more flexibility in your pricing for doing the sampling job as well. So after you have acquired the equipment, the second part is to find and train your panelists. This is one of the challenges of running a good lab. Now the challenge is the working hours. You need flexible hours in the middle of the day. And depending on where you live, that might be difficult to get. For example, in Canada, it is a rather difficult thing to find, especially industrial zones, panelists in the middle of the day. So what do labs do? Well, some of them work with students and some with retirees. Now the students, if you can situate your lab next to a university, they provide an abundance of panelists for you. Students in their mid-20s or early 20s are sometimes more sensitive than the general public, but usually that's not really the case. What you do get with 20-something-year-olds is that their nose stays the same sensitivity for a long time. So they are useful for the whole 2 hours, and if the standard wasn't restricting them to 2 hours, they probably even could do 4 hours without getting tired. And as some of you know, at least I know, when you get to your 30s, yeah, you start to get tired of things quicker than that. And when you're in 50s and 60s, 2 hours might be already a good stretch for you. So this putting next to a university, usually I've seen quite successful, be quite successful. There are some age restrictions, such as I believe it's 65 in the EN standard. But really, when you do test the people, you will see, when you test their sensitivities, and we have courses on this, you see what their sensitivity is like, how long they keep their sensitivity, and the lab administrator will start to know the panelists, know when they start to get bored, when they start to drop in their sensitivity, things like that. There are dietary restrictions. Now, I put that, it's not strict dietary restriction, it just means they shouldn't drink coffee and such things. And this can also sometimes create some challenge. If they can't drink coffee for 2 hours before, which they can't, the caffeine, anything that changes your neural system, caffeine, alcohol, drugs, it will affect your sense of smell, obviously. So if you drink coffee, it really does just change your sensitivity altogether, usually lower it. So for 1 or 2 hours before, for sure they should not eat, drink coffee or something like that. So most labs say in the morning that you come to work, don't drink coffee. That might be hard for a lot of people. So this is another challenge. Some labs I've seen, half the people come in 1 hour ahead, 2 hours ahead, and stay within the office. They have a room where the panelists have the option of sitting, playing, talking, and waiting for their turn. This is quite good as it provides a nice environment, and also you can keep an eye on them that they don't drink coffee or something like that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the laboratory information management system. Now, what that is, one of the key activities you have to do is to show the documentation and show tracking of information. Laboratory information management system provides an automated solution to this. So you have people in field, so there is a part of it that should be doing in-field sample information acquisition. When you took the sample, what were the conditions, things like that. It's good if it can do barcode tracking, so there is less chance of human error. It should be fully integrated with the effectometers, so that data exported from the effectometer can be inputted directly. You also need to keep your panelist certification and the performance, the sensitivity of your panelist over time. And of course, there is good features like automated report generation and laboratory performance reports, means how your laboratory is performing over time compared to other labs or compared to some other metrics you set up. Now, any of our effectometers do come with this laboratory information management system, and it really is very useful in streamlining your ISO certification. We're going to talk about that in the next slide about ISO. Having the laboratory information management system makes it much easier to show how you're tracking documentation for ISO. It is a cloud-based server, so there is remote access, data security, and data backup all included. So about the accreditation. When you want to get accredited, the one you need is an ISO 17025. Now this is a laboratory accreditation. So if you're running a GC lab, soil testing, whatever lab, you can get the 17025. In many of the other industries in North America, you need to be ISO certified. So if you're running a GC lab, you need 17025. But for odor in North America, it's not required to have this ISO certification. In other places, like in UK or something like that, you do require the ISO certification for many projects. But I believe that if you do obtain in North America ISO certification, it will give you tremendous business advantage. There are no labs in Canada, at least, that are ISO certified, that I know of. And to get this, you're required to demonstrate documentation tracking, proper calibration of equipment, panelist training, inter-laboratory testing. So all these things should be demonstrated and documented to be able to get ISO certification. Usually you have to do those things in accordance to the local standard. For example, EN 13725 if you live in Europe. In Canada we have a different standard, but based on the same EN standard. The process can take between 1 to 2 years. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't start working right away. It's just when you get your certification, you can bid for other projects, or you can have a different pricing because you're certified. So, marketing and advertising, that would be, well, the main objective of the whole thing is to sell. And marketing and advertising brings that revenue. So who are your clients? Well, the clients are government agencies, environmental consultants, research institutions, and the industry, wastewater treatment plant, oil and gas facilities, anything that's producing odors. But what is important to know is that you have a local market. It's a business to business, and it's within some driving distance or something like that. If you're operating a portable olfactometric lab that you are flying, like if you have a SC300 and you're flying to different places, that's a more difficult marketing campaign. But otherwise, you're trying to target the people in the city, in the province, in the state. So how do you do that? Well, usually the best way is to do local online advertising, air or environmental magazines, do direct mail marketing. And a lot of people that start this industry, start a lab, they already have whether the clients from other businesses, like they already do GC analysis for air quality, or they do odor consulting, but now they want to start a lab. So they already have some clients as well. To help you set up and to kind of give you some idea of the profits and the expenses related to your new venture, we have set up a calculator on our website. So if you go to our website, Scentroid.com, the link is below, you can find this olfactometric laboratory profitability calculator. So what you type in is, for example, you type in, I have 40 samples per week, which is not a lot, is a good healthy amount, but not a lot. Then the price per sample, like $120. That's really like almost minimal anywhere in the world. Then you put the wage for each panelist per session. Here about $50, I would say, is a good price. The number of panelists, 6, that's it. Laboratory administrator per week. So the lab administrator isn't doing this full time if you only have 40 samples per week. He's probably running the lab 1 day a week. But let's say we pay him $400 per week. We have some overhead, the space required, and something about advertising. We put $250 overhead, which might be low depending on your facility. I'm not sure. It may be that you don't really need to keep a constant lab. For example, 40 samples per week you can do with a 300 or 400. So then it will calculate for you the income per week, so that's 4,800, how much you're spending, about 1,950, and then how much is your profit per week. And then on top of that, how much is your profit per year. So as you can see, it is quite a profitable business, and there are a lot of labs that are making good money. Here you can make about $142,000 a year if those are your expenses and that is your number of samples per week. I know labs that run more than a few thousand samples per year. So it is a profitable venture if you set it up correctly and if you advertise properly to get the sample volume you require. If you need to know more information about the products we offered, about any questions, about the kind of training that we can provide you when you're starting up a lab, you can email us, info@scentroid.com. You can call us at +1 416 479 0078. Or if you prefer, you can chat online. I have a screenshot of our website and you see that orange box in the corner. You can click on that and you are online with myself or one of my engineers, and you can chat to us to get pricing and anything else you need. I thank you very much for your attention. We have another webinar coming next month on cost-effective odor and air quality monitoring, where we introduce some of the new products we have, their uses, and how they can help you to implement better odor management plans through continuous monitoring. It will be on February 17th at 10 a.m., so same time. And you can access it through the youtube.com. And if you have signed up for our newsletter, you will get a link inviting you to that webinar as well. But it is a free webinar and everybody's invited, so it will be broadcast through our YouTube channel as well. I thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck on your new business venture. Thank you.